What is your name?
I'm Sharon Hare, and I work for Boston Scientific, which is a large medical device manufacturer. I was a production supervisor there, and I worked there for about 6 years. And I finally, during the last year, I got very, very disappointed in just the whole process. I couldn't stand going to work.
Why?
On Wednesdays, I'd nearly have a heart attack.
Why?
We had a big meeting where we'd have to go over our metrics. They had an area that was poorly performing as far as labor efficiency. Why? Because the metrics were incorrect. So I uncovered that they'd been incorrect for about 5 years, and it was a $500,000 mistake. So during this meeting, and nobody wanted to hear this, I'd go into this meeting to report to our director, pretty high up management, and I'd say, I can't fix this. This is a $500,000 mistake. And his response to me was, so what? You fix it. And that was just so disappointing that you hear that from the leadership. It was all about metrics and their metrics. It didn't matter that I reduced overtime, people working overtime all of the time, every Saturday and Sunday, because we couldn't manage properly. And I reduced it, I totally eliminated all of that. I made the customer happy. Our customer was so unhappy with this group that I had taken over. And as a matter of fact, about a week before I left the company, the customer said, this is the best order execution that we've seen in years.
All right, so let's get into what was the sort of breaking point, and do you feel like you're in a transition where you're trying to restructure your world and what you think is important in life? Or where are you at?
I actually have been thinking about, how can I get out of this corporate hold? And I've been struggling with that for years.
Me too.
Yeah. And so it's finally, I got fired. So now it's like,
Me too.
Thank you. They came in and they said, you're fired. And I'm like, well, right before the golf tournament? You've got to be kidding me. And actually, it was kind of a big relief. Now I didn't have to, I'd been to the doctor 3 or 4 times for stress. The things that I didn't know that were stress. It's like, oh, I've got this pain. Well, oh, it's stress. And so anyway, I'm now, it's pushed me over the edge where I don't want to go back to the corporate world. I want to try to find out what I can do that will, where I can work that will, how can I do work that will fit with my values?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I've been really struggling with that. I'm a veteran, and I've been thinking about how can I help veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. How can I help women veterans in particular? Mm-hmm. I've struggled with, but I've just ran all these different things through my mind of what I'd like to do. But what I keep going back to is map making. I love maps. I've loved maps all my life since I was a little kid. And I've had this idea. I went to New Orleans a few years ago, and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to see a map that could show New Orleans before the flood and New Orleans after the flood? A lot of people in America think that New Orleans is rebuilt, and it's not. And so this would be a great way of showing that there are these issues that are still out there that you couldn't deny. It's all based on data. I've heard of stories where people have created maps to show to city councils for community organizations that say, hey, this neighborhood doesn't have access to fresh food. And here is a
food
map.
Deserts.
Yeah, it's a food desert. And so here's a map that shows the relationship of food deserts to health issues, malnutrition in children, for example. And community organizations have been able to take this data to city councils and get funding based on this undeniable fact. And so those are some of the things that I'm trying to think of, like how can I figure out a way to kind of make that service for the community.